Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to dive into a topic that sounds like it's straight out of a history book, but it's something that has come up more frequently in recent discussions: states within the U.S. that could potentially break off or seek more autonomy in the near future. Could certain states really separate from the Union? While it's unlikely to happen in the near future, there are a few states that are showing signs of dissatisfaction with the federal government, and we might see some big shifts in the coming years. So, in today's video, we'll explore 10 U.S. states that could theoretically break off or push for more independence. Let's jump right into it. At number 10, we have Texas. Texas has long been associated with a strong sense of independence. The state even has its own Pledge of Allegiance and has explored the idea of secession a few times throughout history. While the idea of Texas breaking away is more of a cultural symbol for many, it's still a hot topic, especially in political discussions. Texas' large economy, independent-minded population, and strong ties to oil and energy resources could give it a fighting chance if it ever pushed for more autonomy. However, despite the talk, it's still unlikely Texas would ever fully separate from the U.S. Number 9 is California. California, often seen as a progressive state, has also seen movements calling for independence, particularly due to differences in policies with the federal government. The Cal-Exit movement, which gained some traction following the 2016 election, highlighted the divide between California and the federal government, especially on issues like climate change, immigration, and social policies. Given California's massive economy, larger than many countries, it could potentially stand on its own if it ever pursued full independence. Number 8 is Alaska. Alaska has often been seen as a state with a strong sense of independence and self-reliance, especially due to its vast geography and resources. Some Alaska independence movements have popped up over the years, arguing that the state is too far removed from Washington's influence. With its abundant natural resources, particularly oil, some argue Alaska could have the economic foundation to survive on its own. However, the state's population is relatively small, and it's unlikely to make the move towards secession in the near future. Number 7, we have Oregon. While not necessarily a state with a strong secessionist movement, Oregon has seen rising discontent in certain regions, particularly in more rural areas. The urban-rural divide, particularly around issues like gun control, environmental regulations, and federal land management, has created some tension within the state. Though the push for independence may not be widespread, there are some movements advocating for more local control and autonomy. Number 6 on our list is Vermont. Vermont has a history of strong local governance and independence, and its citizens have been historically resistant to federal interference in local matters. In fact, Vermont was an independent republic before joining the U.S. in 1791. While the state isn't actively pursuing secession, there are occasional discussions about greater autonomy, especially from political movements within the state that favor less federal intervention. Number 5, we have Hawaii. Hawaii has a unique history of annexation by the United States, and there are movements that argue for the state to reclaim its independence. Some Hawaiian sovereignty advocates believe that the islands were unfairly taken over and that the people of Hawaii should have more say over their future. Given Hawaii's distinct cultural identity and geography, the idea of secession or independence has gained some traction, although it's still a minority opinion. Number 4, Utah. Utah has a strong sense of independence, largely shaped by its history with the Mormon community and the state's unique political and cultural landscape. Tensions between Utah's state government and the federal government have been high, particularly around issues like land use and public lands. In recent years, there has been a growing sentiment that Utah could do better by asserting more control over its own affairs and possibly moving away from federal oversight. Number 3 is Idaho. Idaho is another state with a strong libertarian culture and a history of resistance to federal regulation. The state has often been a hotbed for conservative and anti-government movements, and it's not unusual to hear discussions around greater independence from Washington. Idaho's rural population has long pushed back against federal laws they view as overreaching, and while secession isn't likely, the state could continue to push for more autonomy in certain areas. Number 2 is New York. New York, with its large population, economic influence, and cultural significance, could potentially be a candidate for independence if tensions with the federal government continue to grow. New York's political climate, which often contrasts with national trends, could push the state to explore greater autonomy, particularly on issues like immigration, healthcare, and economic regulation. While the idea of New York breaking away is mostly hypothetical at this point, it's a state that could push for more independence from the federal system in the future. And finally, at number 1, we have Washington. Washington state has been a hotbed of progressive politics, especially in cities like Seattle, and has shown growing dissatisfaction with federal policies, particularly under recent administrations. Environmental policies, tech industry influence, and social issues have all been sources of tension between Washington and the federal government. Some activists have even pushed for greater autonomy or secession in the past. The state's strong economy, particularly in technology, could provide it with the foundation to pursue more independence if the political environment becomes more polarized. So, those are the 10 U.S. states that could, in theory, break off or seek more autonomy in the near future. Of course, the idea of a state actually seceding from the Union is highly unlikely given the legal, economic, and political challenges. But the growing sense of frustration in these states is worth noting, as it could lead to more movements for local control and independence. What do you think? Do you believe any of these states might actually push for secession or more autonomy in the coming years? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.